Today on 3D Outdoors, we're replacing the axle shafts on a 2004 Polaris Sportsman 600 four-wheeler. Stay tuned. So first step, as you saw, Carl removed the tire. Simple lug nuts. All you used was your 3/8 drive.
14 millimeter.
With a 14 millimeter, pop that right off. Now we're taking the sway bar assembly loose here, using a 16 millimeter wrench. Got a 3/8 drive on the top there, probably with a 15-14. Find what socket works for you, and we're gonna get this taken apart. And not that we're an advertisement for Milwaukee tools, however, Carl swears by his new Milwaukee 3/8 drive, which is, what volt is that? That's the same as my drill.
Yeah, it's the fuel.
Yeah, it's the fuel little cell on there. Very handy unit. I have a drill like that. I also have the heated jacket, so very good products by Milwaukee. Again, we're not sponsored by them, but some good products. Next, we're going to take the upper control arm loose. And I do like that you can use it as an option. You can hand ratchet it first to break the nut loose. Now we need to take the remainder of the upper sway arm loose here, because the upper control arm is going to have to swing up and out of the way. So next we're going to have to take our brake caliper off. We're on the side with the brake. This has a single disc brake. That would be on what we would classify probably the passenger side of the vehicle here. Probably takes a 3/8 Allen key caliper tool.
No problem.
And also a notable piece on here, when you're taking your caliper bolts out, on the very end here is a C-clip to help retain that. Even if they work their way loose when you're aggressively off-roading, the C-clip would make sure that those didn't come out and you wouldn't lose your brakes. So make sure you watch for those and remove those when you're taking these out. Caliper, we just swung that right out of the way, as you saw there, just popped right off of there. We're just going to swing that over here and hang it on the side. It's light enough, it's not going to hurt anything hanging under its own force there. We're going to take the center cover cap off that protects the nut and the end of the axle shaft there. And now inside of there we have cotter key that is holding everything in place so that the nut doesn't walk itself off. You need to remove that. There will be a new one with your kit, so that will be a piece that you throw away. You don't reuse those. And I believe the new kit has a new nut and spacer washers as well. Is that correct, Carl?
Yes.
Then you take a socket to remove this, and the socket size is?
1 1/8.
1 1/8 for that socket. We use our 1/2 drive impact to remove that. Alright. Okay, we've got that swung up out of the way there, the upper control arm. Now we're going to take our lower control arm off, and that is going to take a 16 millimeter. Now there are rubber bushings that go into both sides. Now if your bushings are wore out, this would be an ideal time to replace them. These are in fairly good condition, so we're just going to lubricate them and put them back in when we put them back in. You pop your bushings out on both sides, and you can pull out your hub assembly. Inspect that, make sure everything is good inside of there. At this time you can inspect your brakes. We've determined that the brake pads and the rotor are still good enough to continue to be used. And now we're to the point of axle removal. And how do we do that, Carl?
All right, so if they're not stuck in there too bad, you can just give her a couple yanks.
And they pop right out. And there it is.
And this is why we're swapping them out.
Yeah, you can see the boots are tore, and there are some protective shields and whatnot on here, but those are things you're going to want to watch for after you get done off-roading and four-wheeling and whatnot. If you have a torn boot, they make replacement boots that you can put over top and clamp down to protect that. Now these have been run long enough without the boots that the inner joint is shot, so we have to replace the axle, which is just as easy as replacing the joint. Carl's inspecting the differential at this point.
Teeth look good.
Teeth are good. And we'll show our replacement axle shaft assembly here and everything that goes with it. You purchased these, Dave. These are QB Quad Boss axles. They're complete axle shafts, so you've got your inner and outers. Comes with your washers for the outside, like we said, a new nut, and the new cotter pin as well. So everything you need to reinstall right here in one piece, all brand new. You can see the retaining clip is right here at the end of the axle shaft. That's what we had to bypass to get it out. Should be on the old one.
Yep.
And it is. Want to make sure of that as well. Make sure it's not hung up inside there. And then we're going to want to lubricate all these parts before we slide them back in. Dave is applying a thin layer of high quality grease. Now Carl's inspecting the bearings in the hub assembly as well at this time. Great time when you have it all apart to inspect your parts to see if there's anything else that could be causing problems. And he's not getting any grind or drag out of those bearings, so they're good to go.
Yep.
All right. Dave has the axle all lubricated up and ready to be put back in. And what is the process here, Carl?
I'm just going to make sure that your splines are lined up. Make sure you're not crooked. And kind of work it in.
There we go. Dead blow hammer. Little persuasion to get that C-clip, that little clip inside there past so it slides back to where it needs to be seated. Once it's in, you can grab and pull on it a little bit. You can feel that it's not going to come back out.
It's a little bit more.
We're going to go reverse order. We'll take you along for the ride going back together, yes. Dave's going to lube the spline up there. All right, time to install the hub assembly. Going to go with the inner hub here. This is a two-part since it has the brake on this side.
Oh wait, Dave needs it.
Reinsert your two halves of your bushing assembly. You have the inner part already in, placing the outer portion in right at this point. And I presume there's no difference between the inners and outers on this. I think they're identical.
Yes. Blue lock.
Blue Loctite on the bolts so they don't work their way out. drop the upper A-arm in place, and we're going to put that bolt back in. Is that a 15 millimeter again?
14.
14 millimeter on this one.
If I would have grabbed this one. Thank you.
Now we're going to put the upper sway bar back together, and this is 13 millimeter. That's wrenched up.
Yep. Thank you.
And this one is a 14 for the bolt that attaches the sway bar to the linkage to the.
And these
upper
are
end.
slotted, so they need to go in the correct slots. Just make sure they're orientated in the correct direction.
Almost kind of like a carriage bolt almost.
It's 16 here.
And a 16. Now we'll put on our brake hub assembly. For the other side, the only difference is you don't have the disc brake assembly in there. Place the washer on and your axle nut, which are new as you saw. Discard the old ones.
Wipe off all the grease.
Wipe off grease, use some brake clean if you have it.
And then we are going to install the brakes now, so we can use the brakes to hold it to get 100 foot-pounds of torque on this. The castle nut.
Process is very similar for brakes on automotive to this. This is just a smaller version. You can use a channel locks. I think this large vice grip might work in here. I think I can get inside the piston.
Oh, you want to do that? Okay.
And then you simply squeeze the piston back in. That way you have plenty of room for your pad. There you go. All right, now we are going to, as you saw, Carl got the brakes reinstalled, tightened down the nuts. What he failed to do, and I'm going to bring up here real quick before we torque this down, is he failed to put the C-clips back on. We're going to want to make sure to pop those C-clips back in. That way if something would happen to rattle loose, we don't lose the brakes.
That's a great idea, Dan. Good thing the Brett Pan along.
Sorry.
No, that's oh, that's I like that.
Nice.
Now there's fenders in the way. Oh, come on. Click! Oh, and it's lined up perfectly.
As you heard, Carl's kind of excited here. You need to line up the slots in the axle nut with the hole in the axle so you can get the cotter pin through. And it happened to have lined up exactly when it went to torque spec this time. Simply fold the one forward and the other one back. As you can see, it sticks out a little far on the bottom here, so Carl's going to trim that back because we need to get that rubber protective boot over the top, and it would not fit this way. There we go. Another thing you notice, we're all wearing glasses that all are safety rated. Anytime you're working with something that could spring out at you or cutting pieces off like that that could fly, you want to protect your eyes. You only get one set. And test for function. And there you are. A full axle replacement on this Polaris four-wheeler. This is Dan, Carl, and Dave with 3D Outdoors, reminding you to get into the outdoors and enjoy everything it has to offer. If you like this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button at the bottom. We'll see you next time.